Senator Tully.
Minister, a statement on disability focus on the negative experiences and barriers faced by disabled people on a daily reality, unfortunately. But I just want to start briefly by commending many disabled people who are role models and ambassadors within our country here. And I want to pay particular tribute to our athletes who took part in the Paralympic Games last summer and the athletes who took part in the Special Olympic Winter Games last month as well. And we have many other disabled artists, musicians and so forth who are great ambassadors for our country. But unfortunately, when it comes to employment, Ireland has a dismal record. Our employment rate ranks the lowest for disabled people in the whole of the EU. Our employment among disability rate is 32.6%, which is 20% or almost 20% below the EU average. And the employment gap is wider here than it is in any other European country. And it's wider for women again, which is a shock. And it needs to be addressed. And I was recently speaking to a disabled person who is visually impaired. He's an EO employed by the civil service. But he was telling me that he has very little work to do because he is not provided with the accommodations he needs to do the work. And it's terrible to be left sitting in a job that you're employed to do with practically nothing to do. And it leaves him that he can't even seek promotion because he's not, his record of work is not being seen. And I know there is a target, and it's increasing this year, for employment within the public sector, but it needs to be meaningful, and we need to ensure that the accommodations that workers require are provided so that they can do the job that they're employed to do and feel included within the system. And in fact, we need to look more at the private sector as well and encouraging employers to employ people with disabilities and to make them aware of all the accommodations that exist. Otherwise, we are not living up to the UNCRPD. In relation to housing then, we know we have a housing crisis in this country, but there is a housing crisis within that for disabled people because they are inevitably the longest people on a housing waiting list. So whether that's a person with a physical disability who's waiting for the accessible house, or whether it's somebody who's still in a congregated setting, or a person with an intellectual disability living with aged persons, or indeed the practice of putting people into nursing homes still, which is still being used because maybe they've an acquired brain injury and there's no suitable housing for them. And it's disgraceful. Particularly I deal with the aged parents as well, because many parents who are getting older and all they worry about as they come towards the end of their life is what's going to happen to their son or daughter when they leave this world. And generally what happens is that their son or daughter is put into an emergency residential setting with no planning in place, which could be miles from their community or from anyone they know. And they're trying to deal with the grief of losing a parent at the same time as settling into a new home. So there needs to be a much better plan for all disabled people, intellectually disabled and people with a physical disability, to ensure that they have a home that is suitable to their needs in their communities and they have the supports necessary to live independent lives. You mentioned in your opening speech there about CDNTs and you're trying to increase the numbers employed within the CDNTs. Well, from engaging with parents, they just are not working. I have not come across a parent who said that they're getting a satisfactory support from their CDNT. Many parents tell me that if their child aged out of the early intervention teams in 2019, they haven't received any therapy since that. Children that were too young to actually be part of those early intervention teams have had no therapy whatsoever. And it's affecting their ability to progress, it's affecting their ability to learn in school. I've had several meetings in schools in recent times, and they're saying that whatever little support they used to get from the child development teams some years ago, it was very welcome, but they're getting absolutely no support at all. And we are creating a large number of children who are become dependent adults if we don't get them the support. Now, when you were Minister for Special Education, there was a school inclusion model piloted in the CHO7 area, which was, to my knowledge, very successful. And I know the NCSE have extended that into the Limerick area. But we really need to look at extending that nationwide because the CDNTs, I don't know if we're ever going to get the recruitment that's required for them to work. But if we could get therapies into the schools to provide both support to the children in the schools but also to the teachers and SNAs there, it would be very, very beneficial. So thank you.